Hi, my name is Cassandra Moore, and I'm a librarian here in County, and I'm sitting in my library, which is my happy place. But I'm talking to you about why representation is so important. And I remember that I learned this lesson back in 2011. I was teaching a predominantly African American class, and I introduced them to Christopher Paul Curtis books, and oh, they loved it so much. We started with The Watsons Go to Birmingham. We went to But Not Buddy, and we just had such a good time with those books. And, we just did a lot of short stories and things, but I'll never forget there was a girl in that class who came to me and said, "Hey, when are we going to read about Mexican people?" And I was so embarrassed. I did not have a book that represented her. And I'm so glad that she called me out on it. I needed to be called out on that. And I remember just scrambling that I apologized to her, and I went to the book storage in our building, and I was just digging through all these books, and I found Esperanza Rising, and I brought that to the classroom on that Monday and said, "Hey guys, we're going to do this wonderful unit." And I did my research, but she really took the lead in that class. And I mean, she went from being a pretty good student to being a phenomenal student. And it stuck with me that I was so busy, trying to make sure that the majority of my class felt comfortable, that I did not recognize, the message I was sending to her, that maybe her culture wasn't as important. And I have remembered that lesson since it happened. It's been, 11 years, and I never forget it, that I don't need to teach just to the majority. I need to make sure that I am highlighting every culture, every ethnicity in my class, and because every student deserves to see themselves in a positive light, positively reflected in a book. And that student has stuck with me forever. I mean, I can just see her little face right now because I was so proud that she felt comfortable enough, and she felt confident enough to confront me. It wasn't malicious, it wasn't intentional, but I needed to be called out on it. And I'm so glad that she did. So I want to talk a little bit about why it is so important to diversify yourself, to make sure that you are representing every student. And there are some really good books that I've read. A lot of them on the South Carolina uh, Book Awards list that I've read that have helped me to make sure that I am positive reflecting every student. Now, if you have not read Front Desk by Kelly Yang, I suggest that you do so. It is so good. It gives such a different perspective. Everything, there's just so many books that highlight different cultures. And this one is about a family, how they come to America, and then all the things that they witness and all the things that they see, and um, they even how they just learn to be a part of this great country. It's such a good book. It's such a good book, and it's your Asian students will appreciate the fact that you are highlighting some of their highlighting some of their culture. But the thing about um, diversifying yourself, it's not just for the group. It's not just for the Asian students. Every student benefits when they can learn about each culture. It just helps us become better, well-rounded people. Another book I love, Stand Up, Yumi Chung. I love this book by Jessica Kim. Besides the fact that it's funny, it really does talk about the Korean experience and the expectations. And I mean, of course, like there's no one experience for all people, but it's just a really good story. And again, every student benefits when they can learn about um, other cultures. Um, Red, White, and Whole. This is a novel in verse. And I had a student come to me, and she said that she loved this book because it's about, you know, wanting to fit in, but you don't really want to lose your identity either, but you want to fit in, and how you learn that balance. And oh gosh, this is by Rajani LaRocca. If I'm saying that name wrong, I apologize. But such a good story. And I mean, I love the fact that I wasn't even reading it. I had a student come and tell me, you must read this book. This is such a good story. She identified so heavily with this book. Because she has darker skin, and being in this country, you think everybody is blonde and everything, and it just really helped her to find herself, and I love that. I mean, that's just good books for you. um Another great book, Ephraim Divided. This was such a beautiful story about just coming to this country again. It talks about documented and undocumented, but it gives it such heart. It's such a good story, and I felt like it was so relevant to our time, especially what we witnessed over the past year or two, probably more. But I'm just thinking in the past year or two of people, leaving their country, wanting to come and get different, better opportunities. This book is amazing, and it will make you cry. It's a great story. Another great book, Mercy Suarez Changes Gears. And I've come to find out there are more books in this series, but this is by Meg Medina. Oh, I'm sorry, Ernesto Cisneros. This is Meg Medina's phenomenal book. I so enjoyed it. I enjoyed just the story, just the culture. I mean, it was a really powerful story, just about, again, that wanting to belong, wanting to fit in, but then there's that line of, um, you know, I want to fit in, but I want to stay true to my culture, which is something that um, I don't necessarily understand because I haven't experienced that, but I just so appreciate the struggle and the way that these characters do find balance. And I found myself thinking about that with my students. I mean, we get these students, and I wonder how they're able to balance so well. Um, Two other books though, Black Brother, as a South Carolina Junior Book nominee this year, and students really took to this story. I took to this story. You really can't go wrong with Joel Parker Rose. Everything she writes is amazing. But this was a really good story about how um, about how people can be perceived. This is the story of two brothers. They're bicultural, but one is dark and one is light, and how they have been able to, how differently they were treated. Something that really makes you think. It was a great story. And the last one I'm going to end with is Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson. This was my first look at Renee Watson several years ago, and I loved it. And I just loved it. Um, Again, it's just about a lot of stereotypes and overcoming those kind of differences. Um, but just a good book, just a good book. And again, no one book can tell everyone's story, and there's even more books that I can think of. I mean, I'm just kind of finding finding Junie Kim, and I've really become passionate about even looking at the Native American experience. One book that I can think of off the top of my head is Indian No More. And just recently I read Firekeeper's Daughter, which is more high school. But again, it's just so good to look at books from other people's culture that gives you another perspective. And again, no one story can tell everything. But it's just good to be aware of that. And I really sincerely thank that student back in 2011 who came up to me and said, what about stories about Mexican people? Because it has stuck with me all these years. And every year I try to make sure that I am being inclusive, that I am even just trying to represent students who aren't in my building, just trying to represent cultures that aren't present in my building, because it's so important to us. It's so important for us as individuals to try to understand other people's stories. And if you have some book suggestions for me, please feel free to send them to me. I am always looking to learn and to grow and to just be a better human. So thank you so much for your time.